Good morning. As you can see today, I'm going to have a look at the Sony SS speakers. Now, I bought these the other day from the computer and I collected them on my way home from work the other night. Now, the woman I got these off said they was working, but then one of them started cutting in and out and then started making a bit of a clicking noise, and now it doesn't work at all, but the other one is still working fine. So I'm going to open them up and go right through them and see if I can find out what is wrong with them. Now, I haven't connected these up to an amplifier and tried them yet, just in case they have got a dead short or something seriously wrong with them, and then connecting them up to an amplifier would not be a good idea. So at the minute I don't know what one is the working one and what one is the non-working one. So I'm just going to run through them and see if I can find out which is which and hopefully find the fault with these speakers. And I would say it's likely the fault will be with the crossover maybe, because if one of the tweeters had blown or the driver had blown, then the other part of the speaker would still be making sound. But as the woman said it was doing absolutely nothing, then the chances are there might be something wrong with the crossover. And you find it a lot on these little bookshelves. If people have had them up really loud and they have the little heatsink parts in them, that heatsink burns out quite a lot. That's a common fault that I find with little bookshelf speakers and with bigger floor standers a lot of the time, because if people have been running them too loud for ages, they get hot and then the heatsink just gives up. So I do find that quite a lot. But as these Sonys are quite cheap, they might not have a heatsink in them, so it could be a little capacitor gone or something like that maybe. But they might have heatsinks in them. I'm not sure, because I've never had a set of these little Sonys apart. Well, in fact, I've never had a set of these little Sonys. I only bought them because they was really cheap and I thought they'd be a good one for the channel, because it's the kind of little speaker that people just starting out with not a lot of money, this might be the sort of thing they would buy. Because it's Sony, it might have nice drivers and that in it. And looking at that there, that is a half decent quality driver. Well, for a little cheap speaker, that's quite a nice driver in there. Oh, but I'm looking at this now, and oh, come on, Sony, you're better than this, Sony. They haven't even fitted a crossover in these. Oh, Sony, that really is cheapskate. And you should be ashamed of yourself for doing that. Because I bet the little mini system that these speakers come with was a load of money, and the poor person who bought it didn't even get a crossover in their speakers. So I'll take back everything I said about it's probably something wrong with the crossovers in these speakers, because there cannot be anything wrong with the crossovers because they don't even have any. All they are going to have is one capacitor on the tweeter. Well, hopefully they have got that, unless Sony has discovered a way to not put that one in and save even more money. So all I'm doing with this driver, I'm going to tighten up all the connections because they all feel quite rattly and loose. I don't think they're loose enough to stop it working, but I'm just going to tighten them up because it'll help it sound better. And these speakers, not having a crossover in them, they are going to need all the help they can get. And it's always worth checking these connections on speakers, because a lot of the time when they got these spade connectors, they are on there loose, and when they're rattly and that, they really are not making a good connection. So it's worth checking these in your own speakers, and if they're loose, just do what I am doing. Just tighten them up a little tiny bit and then put them back on, and you'll be surprised how much better they will sound if these spade connectors are nice and tight on the terminals. And also you will be surprised at how much better your speakers will sound if they have got crossovers in them. Oh, Sony, Sony, Sony. I can't believe you haven't put crossovers in these speakers. Because it looks like you've put in a half decent quality little driver. You've made a really nice little cabinet, and then you've really cheaped out and not even put a crossover in them. You haven't even put one little capacitor in there to stop the high frequencies going to this driver. Look in there is absolutely nothing. They haven't even bothered to put some sound deadening on the sides of the boxes. Get one little cheapskate bit at the back. Oh, come on, Sony. You probably could have charged £5 more for a set of these speakers and probably have made them sound a lot better. So I'm going to put that driver back in because I couldn't see nothing wrong with that driver. I've just tightened up the connections on it because they was a bit loose. So I'll pop that driver back in and then we'll have the tweeter out and have a look at that. And hopefully the tweeter will have a capacitor on it. So let's get the screws back in and I shall tighten the driver back up and then we'll have a look at the tweeter. And so for those of you who are new to this hi-fi lark, and for those of you who don't really understand what a crossover does or why you would need one, what it does is it splits up the signal from your amplifier. So it sends the high frequencies to your tweeter and it sends all the low frequencies to your driver. But where Sony have been so tight and not giving you a crossover, everything is going to the driver on this one, so the high frequencies are not being taken away from the driver. So the driver is trying to do it all in this speaker. It is playing the low frequencies, the mid-range frequencies and the high frequencies. And that's going to be too much for a little driver like this. And that's why I'm saying I'm hoping there is a capacitor on the tweeter, because otherwise the tweeter is trying to play the low frequencies and the high frequencies. And that would really not be very good. The driver can cope with it. The driver can deal with all them frequencies, but it would sound better if it never had any high frequencies going to it. But a tweeter really cannot deal with low frequencies, so Sony must have fitted something on this tweeter to stop that happening. So let's see if they have. And yeah, look, they have, look, they put a capacitor on it. So that capacitor there, that is on there to stop any low frequencies going to this tweeter. So the way this speaker is made by Sony, by just using one capacitor on the tweeter, it is like the cheapest way possible of making some kind of crossover in the speaker. So I can't see nothing wrong with the tweeter in this one. Although the terminals are a little bit loose, I'm just going to do the same and tighten them up like I did the other ones, because that spade connector was really loose on that tweeter connection. So I'll just pop it back on and that feels much better now that it's back on now. So that's it basically. I can't see nothing wrong with this speaker, so I reckon this one might be the good one. Well, hopefully this is the good one because I can't see nothing wrong with it. And as it hasn't got a crossover in there, even if the driver or the tweeter had blown, you'd still be getting sound out of one of the other speakers because there's not a lot going on in there to go wrong. So I do think that this one is probably the good one, and it is more than likely the other one that has the fault, because I couldn't see anything inside this speaker that looked like it would cause it not to make some kind of sound. And there is always the thing where there might be nothing wrong with the other speaker, and then the problem was in the woman's little Sony MIDI system. I did ask her about her little system, but she had already sold it and someone had come and picked it up. So I just put that last screw back in, and then that's it. The first speaker is all back together. And then we shall open up the second one and see if I can find anything wrong with that one. So I'll just go round and check that I've done all these little screws nice and tight. And you don't want to go too mad tightening these up, because remember, they are only going into a little wooden cabinet. So just nip them up, don't really crank on them with all your strength. So that's that one done. So let's put that one out of the way and get this one over here and have a look at this one. And I would say this about these speakers: although they have not got a crossover in them, they could still sound okay for a little cheap set of bookshelf speakers. They really could. Quite a lot of the little bookshelves have got a crossover like this. They've just got one capacitor on the tweeter, and sometimes at normal listening volumes they do actually sound alright. It's when you start trying to turn them right up, that is when you notice that they are lacking a crossover. So at normal listening volumes, a little speaker like this might just surprise you by how good it does sound. Now, I'm not saying these Sonys are going to sound good, because I haven't heard them yet. They might sound like an absolute load of rubbish, but they might not. They might still sound alright, because that driver and that, it did look quite good quality in here, and the cabinets are well made for a little small, like, budget bookshelf. Obviously, these things are not going to sound like a £500 pair of speakers, but that's not what they are. They are a little cheap set of bookshelves. So let me just tilt it over and get this other driver out. And it is quite heavy, this little driver. Oh, and there, look, I can see straight away what's wrong with that. You see that? Wires come off. I bet that's all that's wrong with this speaker. The little spade connector has come off of its terminal. That's why it's not making no sound. And that's come off because they was so loose, like in the other speaker. They were so loose, them spade connectors. That's why I tightened it up. So I'm not surprised one has fell off. I'm surprised one hadn't fell off in the other speaker. So if that is all that's wrong with them speakers, then that is really good for me, but not so good for you lot watching, because that has made for a really rubbish video. I can only apologise. Because I was here, I've got my tester ready to go, I've got the soldering iron out ready, I am all systems go to do some serious speaker repairing, and all it is the wire has fell off. And I have had this quite a few times before. This is not the first time, and this will not be the last time that I've bought speakers that's not working, and all it is a wire come off. So a bit of advice here for you lot watching at home. If you've got a set of speakers and one of them is not working, before you put them up for sale on the computer, just open them up and make sure that a wire has not come off. And this is a story here. This is one that's coming into my head. I once bought a really nice high-end set of Kef reference speakers, and they wasn't that old. This was a few years ago. So these speakers were a really high-end set of Kef reference, and they was only a couple of years old. Listed as one working, one not working. So I messaged the seller and said, can you explain a bit more about how they stopped working? And this was back in the days where you could send your phone number about. So the bloke sent me his phone number and he said, give us a ring. So I rung him and he was a nice fellow. I was talking to him. So I said, what happened with these speakers then? And he was like laughing about it. He said him and a few friends and their wives had been out down the pub and that. And then they got in and had a bit of a party at his house and had music up really loud, like cranking these kebs right up. And then one of them just went dead. And all that was working was the tweeter. So he said, obviously, it's blown up. One of them's blown up. So I was like, all right, mate. But I still thought, oh, I'll have a bid on them. You might need to get some new drivers and things for them. But they was a really nice set of kefs. So I ended up buying them, and I didn't pay nowhere near what these kefs was worth. They was in lovely condition as well, and I remember I had to drive miles to go and collect them. And when I collected them, the bloke is like laughing, saying, oh, I did love them speakers. I was so gutted that I had them up too loud and blew one of them up and all that. So when I brought them home and opened them up, all that was wrong with one of them is, you get the binding posts on the back, the little nuts on the inside had wound themselves loose and the little loop terminal bit had come off. So where he'd had the music so loud, the vibration must have been unwinding the nuts on the binding post, and then they'd come off. The nuts was in the bottom of the speaker and the wire had come off, so there was nothing wrong with them. And all he had to do was take the little panel out of the back where the terminals went on and just put the little loop terminal back on, tighten the two nuts back up, and that kef would have been good to go. But he obviously never even looked at it, just assumed they'd blown up and just sold them. And I had exactly the same once, well, not exactly the same, but very similar, with a big set of missions. I think they was called Freedom 753. Lovely big set of floor standers. I really loved them speakers. When I moved house, I sold them. I was so gutted. I think of all the speakers I've ever sold, I was gutted to sell my big mission, Freedom 753s. I really loved them. But I bought them the same. I bought them as non-working. One of them didn't work. When I opened it up, I don't know how it had happened, it was a bit strange, but the inside of the binding post had snapped off. So it wasn't making a connection. The bit was still in there, attached to the loop terminal with the nuts and that on it, but it had broken off from the actual terminal. You couldn't see no damage from the outside. But that is all that was wrong with them. I put a new binding post in it and that speaker sounded lovely. So it just goes to show, before you write your speakers off, just spend 10 minutes and open them up and just have a little look through them. Make sure a wire hasn't just come off. And that wire there was really close to coming off. The one on the tweeter terminal, that is really loose. So I should tighten that back up and put that back on. And what I would say about the speakers with no crossovers in them, I have had high-end speakers before without crossovers in them, so not all speakers do have crossovers. I've had some high-end speakers, really, really good sounding. They had no crossovers in them. But you run them off of 3 amplifiers. So each speaker had its own amplifier. One for the bass drivers, one for the mid-range, one for the tweeter. And the frequencies of the amplifiers are set to the frequencies of the speakers. So you don't have a crossover in them. Your amplifiers are kind of becoming the crossovers. Now, it is a very expensive way of doing it because you need 3 amplifiers, but the sound you can get out of that sort of system is really impressive. And I'm not talking about like an active system where you've got the separate amplifiers but they are inside the speakers. I'm not talking about that. The system I used to have had 3 separate amplifiers that are not near the speakers. They're like your normal amplifier that you'd use, and your volume control, like on the first amplifier, your volume would just do the bass. On the second one, the volume would do the mid-range, and then the other volume would do the tweeters. So you can dial the sound in exactly how you like it. Oh yeah, it was a good setup to play around with. So I'll just tighten up these last couple of screws on the tweeters, and then these Sonys will be back together and hopefully they will be working. So I've just connected them up to the little Pioneer SX434 receiver, and hopefully when we turn it on we will be able to get some sound out of these little Sony bookshelves. So I'm only going to try them on the radio, and I have got no aerial connected up to this Pioneer, but I can't play you a load of music anyway, so I'm only really seeing if they are making any noise, and they are. I can hear both of them working. So let's flip the balance over to one side. Yeah, see, that one's working like a good un. So let's flip the balance over to the other side and see if the other speaker is working. That first one sounded alright. Let's see what this one is doing. Yeah, there you go. That one is working like a good un as well. So the little Sony speakers are back in action. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.